thepascal. You are now rocking with that dude Pascal.
What's up? We got some updates revolving around this Diddy trial. Let's be real. This Diddy trial has already gotten super messy. It is absolutely turning into a dumpster fire already. I already thought that this was going to happen. I just didn't think it was going to happen so soon. But nonetheless, Mark Geragos, who also is a co-host on a podcast with TMZ's Harvey Levin called Two Angry Men, stirred the pot a little bit yesterday. So much that prosecution had a huge problem with him being in the room. Don't worry, I'll explain here in just a minute. But let's take a look at this title here, okay? Mark Geragos, who, by the way, his daughter is part of Diddy's team. He is also a big-time lawyer, if I'm correct. He's done a lot of work for Diddy in the past. He's a big-time lawyer, let's be real. But the thing is that he's not a part of the detail. He's not a part of the 7 or 8 lawyers that make up Diddy's quote-unquote dream team. He's just there as a quote-unquote consultant, y'all. Now, here's the thing. A lot of things could be very bad because, again, Diddy could be caught red-handed trying to manipulate the public and taint the future jurors, okay? And the jury in general afterwards, because just so you know, so far, the judge has not sequestered these jurors. So every day that the court is adjourned and the day is over, they all get to go back to their respective homes, these jurors. So there is still possibilities of them, getting influenced by family members because family members are watching everything, reading the headlines. They can even get access to going to their computers, turning on the TV, and all that as well. So again, Diddy could have been caught red-handed by trying to bring someone in who says they're a consultant to the Diddy team that actually is talking on podcasts directly afterwards on a very popular and very well-known platform. So TMZ, which we're looking at right now, is a massive platform, and they have been following this case like crazy. We, of course, over here appreciate the coverage, but at the same time, this could very well be a bad move. There was a gag order that was set up. And then days after that gag order was set up, Mark Geragos went out and started talking on his own podcast about the inside information that he knew about this upcoming trial with Diddy. Of course, they saw what was going on. The courts, or at least the prosecution, saw what was going on and did not like this, called this out, and now Mark Geragos has basically been, I guess, kicked out, or either he's part of the team or he's not part of the team. And that's the one thing that I think is very, very interesting, because again, that means he will not be able to do his podcast and talk on and give people updates and everything, because that would be violating the gag order. Again, he was in the room during the jury selection, and he was getting up allegedly and walking over and consulting himself, and other members of his own team were walking over and talking to Diddy's dream team while they're going through the whole jury selection process. Again, that is wild. It wasn't even just Mark Geragos. It was he had other partners there too. So in other words, Diddy had not only just 7, he probably had like 10 other people, 10 people in total helping him for this case. And again, these are not people that are on his payroll as far as lawyers. They're not part of his lawyers that are there to defend him. They're not part of this defense team. And yet Garagos was still over there trying to be his lifeline in a way, like we're watching Who Wants to Be a Millionaire or something like that, right? It's like, oh, well, we don't know what to do. Can I use my lifeline? Can I call a friend? And Garagos would just keep walking up with his other people, consulting with the team. The prosecution had a huge problem with that. And of course, this caused quite a stir in the conversation, or in this particular courtroom on this day. But let's take a look at this. But like I said, this is insane. And again, Diddy trying to do everything he can, but this is messed up because you got to remember, if Garagos finds out some inside information and he goes on his podcast, Two Angry Men, and he talks about that information, he could potentially taint the jury. Again, like I said, they get to go home, guys. They're not going to be locked up, holed up in some sort of hotel for the next 8 weeks. They will be able to go home. They'll be able to open up their phones, go on computers, talk to friends, turn on the TV, and hear podcasts if they want to, and possibly be tainted from the information that they're hearing on their own free time. So again, either this is a bold move by Diddy or not. I leave that question up to you guys. But here it is. All right. He can't have a podcast cake and eat it too. So it looks like he's going to be stepping aside from the podcast because obviously it's violating the gag order that's been descended upon everybody, including prosecution as well. But let's get into this. All right. So Sean Diddy Combs is getting extra guidance in court from famed attorney Mark Geragos. He's right here. All right. So, but federal prosecutors ain't having it because Garagos doesn't have clearance to participate and frequently discusses the case on his podcast, Two Angry Men. And yes, he most definitely does talk a lot about this case on that podcast. Garagos was in court for the first day of jury selection in Diddy's criminal trial, seated somewhere behind the 7 attorneys Diddy has retained, all of whom have court clearance to defend him. All of them do. Mark Geragos allegedly does not. But prosecutors say they noticed Garagos and other members of his firm consulting with the defense team and think that that's a party foul due to his side gig. So they don't have a problem with him being there consulting, which I still think that's kind of trash in my personal opinion. Like, you really need 3 or 4, 2 to 3 other people consulting on the side. Really? Seven lawyers in your defense team that you call your dream team. You really don't think that's enough? I'm just being real. Just saying that. Asking for a friend. All right. But you have to bring more people in. I would feel some type of way about that if I was prosecution as well. All right. In a letter to the judge, they cite a rule barring anyone associated with the defense from making public comments that could, quote unquote, interfere with a fair trial. Absolutely. You got a gag order that has been sent out there. And then days later, you got Garagos going on to his podcast and talking about the information that he knows. It's a party foul. Definitely is wrong. And again, good thing that prosecution was able to catch this situation. Their concern is all about Garagos' podcast, which we talked about, the Two Angry Men, which he co-hosts with TMZ's Harvey Levin, and prosecutors are apparently subscribers. Yeah, everybody's listening to their stuff. Let's be real. Anyway, prosecutors point out Mark Geragos commented about Diddy's case on their most recent episode entitled Harvey Exposes What He Knows About Diddy. They say Garagos talked about the Cassie CNN hotel video, okay, the Fed's all-female prosecution team, and arguments Diddy's defense intends to take or to make, which is very interesting. Plus, he told the audience he'd be back with more on the next episode. And let me tell you, if you're part of that team, and if you're consulting, whatever, you can't just be the person you can't be the inside scoop. You can't be the source for everybody. Don't get me wrong. Let me keep it a bean. I mean, I would love to have more sources that are inside the courtroom that can give us more information. But if you're giving your own particular color commentary, biased opinion to the trial, that could potentially destroy this trial before it even gets to a verdict. Again, there's a potential of manipulation here that maybe Diddy was hoping to have happen. That is possible. The feds say Diddy has complained about their office making pretrial statements to the media. So they find it funny, not haha, that Garagos is so overtly making statements on his podcast while also apparently working with Team Diddy. Exactly. That doesn't make any sense. You're going to sit there and say you got a problem with the media saying everything, talking about this case, speaking ill on his name, diving into these freak offs and all that. And you say, please gag order, basically hide everything, seal everything from the public because you're going to taint the potential jury. You're going to manipulate the verdict before a verdict is even reached and all that. And yet you still have somebody on your team going on to TMZ, which is a massive platform. Okay. Massive news site. And they're talking about this stuff. Again, did he maybe caught red-handed? Quite possibly. But let's take a look at this, guys. All right, we still got a little bit. And again, it looks like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. This is his defense team. 8. So I don't know. Maybe one of them isn't a lawyer or something. But that's interesting because Mark Geragos his face is not on this part of this defense team. Again, it is interesting. You're a fly on the wall, and then you go to your podcast to talk about it. Again, another opportunity for him to get some views, some listeners, get some money. You see what I'm saying? So it is interesting, and I don't think it's right either. Okay, well, let's take a listen to a little bit of this here too.
The prosecutor said consulting with Garagos about jury selection, and the problem for that, what the prosecutors say is, he can't do this because he's on a podcast where he is talking about this case every week.
So in other words,
there's a rule though, you can't do both.
Well, what they're saying,
you definitely can't do both. Like you can't. You are inside the room. You are inside the room talking with the star witness or the star defendant, and then all of a sudden you are going on your podcast and giving everybody the tea. Don't get me wrong. Sure, it'd be great to hear all his tea, all the workings and all the ins and outs and all the stuff that's going on behind the scenes. But at the same time, it could definitely tamper with this entire trial.
They're saying that he is in some form or fashion part of the defense team. And if he's part of the defense team, there's a gag order that requires him not to make these statements.
Of course. It's not like he's going over to the prosecution and giving them some inside information. It's not like he's going to prosecution and being their lifeline whenever they need some consulting or need some help with something legal. He's over on Diddy's side. So of course, yeah. You know what I'm saying? This is crazy.
So they're saying that he's violated the rule, that he is part of the defense team. Now, I don't know
if he's going to say that he's part of the defense.
And I don't know if the judge is going to say whether he's part of the defense team or not, because I don't know what he was saying or whatever.
The prosecutors wrote a letter to the judge saying, you need to please remind Mr. Garagos of this rule.
Interesting, in the letter, they pointed out a particular thing Garagos said on the podcast.
Okay, so we're going to hear that really quick. But again, I mean, this is a big problem, in my personal opinion. I think that this is slippery, very sneaky. And again, he keeps coming back. One, it helps the podcast get some more views and get more listeners. But at the end of the day, this does not help this does not help with the trial. This does not help victims get the justice that they feel like they rightfully deserve. This does not help the feds take this alleged monster down. Again, it's a bad move. And, I feel like in a way, shouldn't he know this? But all right. you know.
So the prosecution now, we know, it just came out today, that they have 5 lawyers on the team, all of whom are 6?
6.
Now, the ones I know of 5, all women. Is the 6th a woman?
Yes.
Okay, so
yes.
6 women, all white. All white.
Correct. That's my understanding. I've only seen a couple of them, or know of a couple of them, but my understanding is you got a 6-pack of white women.
That's not coincidental.
It's very interesting to me. But when prosecutors try to get too cute, you referenced O.J. Simpson, sometimes it comes back and backfires.
Interesting. I think
6-pack.
A 6-pack of white women. Now, here's the thing. Interesting that there isn't much diversity on the prosecution side, but if we'll see if that has anything, if that has a part in this particular trial. Okay, when you look at O.J. Simpson's trial and all that, race was most definitely a factor used in that trial. Will that be the same thing here? I don't know, but we're not here to talk about that part. But it is interesting that he's sitting there going, here are the details that I know about the prosecution. They're all white women, and there's a 6-pack of white women. That's information that, like I said, could potentially taint the trial. So again, how could he not know that he's not supposed to do that? To me, it seems as if it's an opportunity for Diddy to mess with people, to mess with the trial without him actually messing with the trial himself. So again, it's very interesting that he got caught red-handed trying to have this very successful lawyer come in and be his consultant, but then also give the inside scoop on his podcasts, on a very popular podcast, and from a very popular news website. It's crazy, guys. But of course, this circus has just started. We're just in the very beginning of this crazy trial. And we're going to see what else happens here very, very soon. But what say you on this, guys? What are your thoughts on all this? Comment down below. Let me know what your thoughts are. Crazy. I don't think it's a good move, in my personal opinion. Hit that like button down below. Crush that subscribe button. And we'll talk here soon. Be good to yourselves. Be good to one another. This is The Pascal Show. Bye.
Pascal. You are now rocking with that dude Pascal. We be going wild.